Alright, hello everyone. My name is Sam, also known as fwwwwwibib, or just fwib, and welcome to another match from the 2021 USTA Tak Open. We're now into the third round, and my opponent today is Abyss, who is a top 3 player, I think, in terms of the ratings, and is one of the players that I've had the most difficulty actually beating in the past. So I've had a good run so far in the tournament, currently undefeated, but this is where things are gonna get tricky. I've got Abyss today, and then I'll be playing against Ali next up on Sunday. And as you'll see here from the rankings, you see Manatee's up in second place, but for those of us who've only played 6 games, haven't played any of our third round matches yet, it's myself, Ali, and Abyss on 22, 23, and 24 points. So very tight at the top, and these are going to be 2 tricky games for sure. Now, let's see if, there we go, Abyss is ready to go. So let's jump into the game. So we are playing a 6x6 board, and we're playing with this 2 Komi, which if it's your first time watching one of these matches, a 2 Komi basically means that if the game goes to a flat count at the end, black is going to have 2 added to their count. So I'm playing as black this round. So I'm going to be on the back foot in the early game, most likely, but looking to sort of push the game through to a tight finish where that Komi may come into play. Okay, Abyss has started off with this kind of edge crawl type opening. So the question is, how do I want to respond to that? Do I start doing my own thing, just set up on c4, or do I play something like f4 to immediately jump in the way of that potential line down the f file? I'm going to do something a little bit in between. I'm going to play at e3. I think this gives me the opportunity to cut off Abyss by playing here onto f3, and it's also a little bit more central. The danger, or the sort of downside of this move, is it is quite a long way away from my a6 flat stone, so it's potentially going to take me a little while to make use of that additional flat, whereas, as you can see, obviously Abyss's stones are immediately very close together. Okay, with that, I'm going to just play a flat on d3 for now. I think trying to develop my own threat, get a bit more of a central presence here is going to be useful. I was considering doing something like putting a capstone down on d4, and getting a capstone down early and central is rarely a terrible idea, but I think I can afford to wait a little bit longer before I deploy that, see if I can find a place where it's going to be more effective than just sort of putting it in the first place that occurs to me. So now, yeah, as kind of expected, we're ending up with a sort of mirrored opening going along here. I now have the momentum in this situation, so I'm going to just keep placing flats for now, see what Abyss chooses to do, because I am in a position where I can make a threat in 2 turns, and it's going to take Abyss 3 turns to make a threat. Okay, so Abyss places on e2. I'm just going to go f3, keep sort of trying to force the issue here. If I can get Abyss to make a capture with one of these flat stones, I'll feel very good about that. I expect more likely his capstone is going to come down on something like d2 perhaps, and he's going to look to cut the thread off with that. If that happens, it's an interesting question as to how I want to respond to that, but I think for the moment, just keeping my, okay, so that does come down there. Now, if I just let Abyss capture up here onto d3, then he's looking now with a very strong position, having sort of 4 out of these 6 spaces under his control, and also looking to then move over and make a threat along this side. So the question is, do I want to just capture up here, move my flat stone away from Abyss's cap, or do I do something like thinking, okay, I'm going to place my capstone down on e5 maybe, and look to cut off what Abyss is doing, but I think there's still a bunch of ways that he could build around me here. If I do capture onto d4, I expect to see a flat stone come down behind on d3, and then Abyss will be looking to make a hard cap, either capturing up or capturing across. None of which looks great for me. I can just play b3, force the capture. Or I could do something like put my capstone on c4 and look to start coming across potentially. This is a tricky spot. I'm going to have to keep an eye on the time with the commentary. This game is likely to go the distance, given how good a player Abyss is, unless he manages to turn this into a quick win, which is also perfectly possible. Okay, I'm going to do something which I hadn't mentioned as an option, but I think I like playing I don't really love any of my options here, but I think playing the flat stone on c4, it still leaves me room to place my capstone in a spot where it's going to really impact what Abyss is trying to do. It also starts building, it gives me more center control. It lets me potentially build vertically here as well as still being connected to my other pieces. My expectation is that I'm going to need to use potentially a wall on my capstone to shut down what's going on over here. But yeah, this one's also in position to potentially move across onto d4 if I decide that that's necessary later on. And it doesn't mean that I still have the momentum with that placement, although again this capstone capture is going to put paid to that pretty quickly. So at this point, once that capstone came down, it was a question less of, okay, Abyss chooses to reinforce there, look for the capture. Okay, now I think I do need to put my capstone down, and it's going to come down up here, just try and get right in the center of this formation here, and this kind of ladder formation or staircase, you could call it, is quite strong. Each piece is defended by 2 other pieces, and it's also the kind of position where, for example, if I capture over onto e5, Abyss can just place again onto e4 and kind of build around any any disruption that I try to make. So it doesn't, if you think about this as opposed to a straight formation of just 5 pieces together. Okay, I have to stop that and just think about this now that the business made its move on to E1. Now at this point I am, I was going to say, more inclined to move D3 up, but actually just the flat stone fill in there, it doesn't work out well for me. I can come, so I want to get my capstone into this formation. Do I want to come down, or do I want to go across first? I think I want to come down to begin with. This gives me a more robust position in the middle, and means that, yeah, when that capstone comes up, I mean, this is attack threat, but the capstone now really has only one way to go. And now I'm actually going to, generally speaking, you want to capture with your capstone or walls instead of with flat stones. But I think in this particular position, I prefer capturing up with the flat stone, because if I capture across with my cap, Abyss can pretty quickly just build around me, and it's moving my capstone further out of the center. So I'm going to go with that, and hopefully try and shut down this. I'm thinking some walls are going to come down fairly quickly. Either I might well place one of my own somewhere like D5, or I wouldn't be surprised to see Abyss place a wall, for example, on F4 here, and try and release this captive that I've just created, particularly because my capstone's in a position where it's going to be relatively easy to pin it with the white flat underneath it, so that I potentially am not going to be able to crush to protect this piece. But we'll have to see what Abyss does in this position. He could just place another flat, for example, on E3, or F4 might be the better spot, yeah. Because this means if I want to place on F3, the capstone can just come across. Right, yeah, this is tricky. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to place a wall on E3. Let me just double check that doesn't immediately lose to the crush. If this crushes, then it is attack threat, but I can, if this crushes in that spot, I'm probably capturing over onto my own piece on E4, I think. And that, I think, ends up okay for me. If I play the wall here, yeah, that's the, yeah. I'm thinking, so what are Abyss's ways to renew this threat? And one is to just crush the wall here. The other one is to capture over onto E4. I don't foresee that happening because I can just recapture with either the wall or with the capstone, and that's basically just a wasted move. Importantly, placing on F2 is not immediately a threat, although it does, get pretty close. It's pretty threatening. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Abyss do that. If he does, I could do something like capturing up with F3 onto F4. I think at this point, obviously my number one priority is don't let Abyss make a road. Second priority is to start making threats of my own. Okay, so he does place F2. So I don't want to just sit here and allow the f2. Well, if I just sit and allow the f2 plus capture, what happens? I can capture with the wall, but then the crush is not tinue, but doesn't look good for me. If I allow the f2 capture onto f3 and place a wall on f2, then the crush is again not tinue, but it still doesn't look great for me. So does that mean I want to capture up with f3? Or do something like preemptively put my cap onto e4? Or something kind of weird like capturing down with the wall on e3. I need to get a move on because this is gonna taking a long time over these moves, which sometimes is necessary. I think I'm priced into doing this. I just really don't want this wall crush to start kind of leading to some kind of tinue sequence down here. I expect I'll probably need to chuck another wall down relatively soon. I kind of expect to see Abyss actually play a wall here on f3. If he does anything other than that, I'm probably placing on b4 just to make a threat and get something going. Okay, yeah, the wall does go down there. Yeah, I think I make this threat, the wall's going to come up, and I probably chuck another wall down myself on f3 just to really clog all this up, and then I can kind of... I can't forget about this area, like it's still, with that capstone particularly, it's still potentially a threatening area for me, but like I just want to shut this down as much as I can and then start building over this side where I have 4 pieces and Abyss has none, whereas over on this side we're working in the corridor with it where Abyss has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, effectively 7, 8, 9 pieces to my 4. That's a very simple way of thinking about it, but it gives you sort of an indication of the fact that Abyss clearly has the advantage in this if all the action is happening over on this side. So Abyss has some, obviously a very good flat count differential move, bringing the wall over onto e4. That would put his flat count to 7, whereas mine would be then 4. Effectively 6 with the Komi, so I'm now effectively behind by 1, assuming once you factor that in on the Komi, although sort of behind by 1 / level with when you take into account placing myself. Okay, clearly Abyss has decided that he's not going to be able to immediately push a road on this side and has realised what I'm trying to do and is therefore transitioning himself to trying to work over on this side of the board. So if I play b2, Abyss plays b3, this capstone coming across is kind of not great for me. So I think I actually want to push the action even further across to this side. I'm going to place A2. That might seem a little bit counterintuitive, placing on the edge instead of closer to the center and further, but placing further away here. Now if Abyss plays B2, for example, and I play A3, I feel better about that kind of setup than I would if it was just sort of white pieces on C2 and B3 and black pieces on B2 and C3. So trying to keep, and it obviously this potentially works for me building a vertical threat, but it also sort of gets in the way a little bit of this horizontal line that Abyss is going to be looking to create. So now, yeah, like I said, I think A3, wouldn't be surprised to see A1 here or B3 from Abyss. Yeah, A1, so I'm then going to place B1. Don't want to let him get the easy threat along this way. And now he's got the momentum in this spot, he's able to create the threat, placing on D2, for example. But yeah, I have my wall, for example, which can come down here, potentially shut that off, or I can capture over onto A1. I do want to figure out a way to get my capstone involved in the game at some point. I can't throw over and crush this wall, but potentially when the wall comes, when the wall comes over for this positive flank, I move on to E4. I might be able to set up a situation where I can crush it without immediately losing the game. I just need to keep an eye on, for example, maybe getting one of my flats down on D5 so that connection isn't immediately there. But for now, like I said, now that we're moving into this half of the board, even if you just look at this bottom left quarter, it's 3 pieces to 3, which is better for me than whatever it was, 9 to 4 over this side. Okay, so this does make the threat. Question is, do I capture down with the wall? I don't want to. This wall. If I capture down with this wall, placing a flat behind here then means that this positive flat cut move is attack threat with the wall crush. I do need to capture somewhere, so my other option is capturing onto A1. Wall then coming behind onto B1 is not good for me though in that case, so I think I am going to use the wall here. The other slight issue with this capture here is that it allows the immediate sort of renewal of the threat with F1, which is kind of what I expect to see here. So the question is, do I capture again with this? If so, do I go left or down? Or do I, for example, bring this piece down? If I bring this one down, then again, this can potentially just start building back around this side. The other move I didn't mention, which I maybe should have considered more closely, is bringing C3 down. I think for now I'm just going to stick to using this wall. So if he places D1, the wall coming down onto e1, then there's no immediate way to renew the attack threat. It does put a few juicy white pieces under this wall, so I need to watch out for the wall smash from the black capstone potentially becoming a possibility. But given the way that the flat count is trending, I don't particularly want to create any more liabilities for myself by capturing with flat stones. Okay, let's go with that. I will do what I said. So now, the slight problem that I'm running into here is that even though I have slowed Abyss down by a turn, he can't make a threat immediately just now. He has still got the momentum. He's still closer to making a threat than I am. I'm 2 moves away, whereas once he's placed this piece, he'll be able to renew the threat immediately. So the question is, am I priced into placing yet another wall? For example, on f2. Might be necessary. I could just place a flat stone on f2. Or I could play a4 now. Let him make the attack threat on f2. I come down with the e3 wall. And then he can't make another threat, and I can make my threat on a5 the following turn. Like I said, I just really don't like the idea of moving this wall out of the way. So this may be making a rod for my own back in the flat game later. Feels kind of necessary at this point. No, the flat count now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 to Abyss, and 3, 4, 7 to me, 9 to me with the Komi. So gonna need to get something going in terms of making some threats, forcing some disadvantageous captures in order to sort of get back into this. But that's kind of Abyss has played this very well up to this point. Really hasn't given me any time to settle or kind of create any kind of momentum or advantage as black. So it really has just been a question of sort of hanging on by the skin of my teeth as much as I can and hoping to sort of take the game late and see what I can conjure, really. Okay, and now Abyss says, right, I'm happy with, he's clearly happy with the way that the flat count is looking for him. Thinks he can afford to place a wall and kind of force something through the capstone here. And obviously just preemptively thinking that the way that I get back into the game is by making some threats of my own. And that wall is probably the best possible way to shut down that possibility. Although, if I join up here, wall coming across onto a3, placing back onto b3 does renew the threat. The other option I'm thinking is placing on, like I said, the way that Abyss kind of forces a win is through doing something with the crush here. Like if Abyss places a flat here, then he can make that crush. And, well, I guess I could move this stack. I'm worried about this crush then leading to the crush down here on E1 and releasing that load of flats, and like that could easily be a Tinue sort of going north or west. So it's tempting to place a flat on F3. I think, like I said, I really need to get something going of my own, so I'm going to hope that I can use the fact that I now have the momentum just to kind of keep Abyss's focus over on this left-hand side of the board, and then kind of figure out what I'm going to do, or kind of make potentially some preemptive maneuvers against that sort of crush sequence that might occur once I've kind of made Abyss a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, so he does place that F3 piece, so I'm going to need to be very aware of what I'm going to do about that. But for now, like I said, I can at least make a threat of my own to start with. I think my response to this sequence down here is going to involve, I can't crush with the cap, but I could, so maybe potentially bring the cap over onto E4, or I could even bring this wall up. But yeah, actually, I tell you what, I think rather than use this wall to defend, I wonder if Abyss is going to capture onto A2 instead, make a threat this way. Again, looking to make the crush. Oof. Yeah, this feels thoroughly uncomfortable. Okay, yeah, it does do that. So my available responses, I can capture across here. Don't really like that. I can capture down here. I don't hate that, actually. That's attack threat. The kind of one that I wouldn't expect Abyss to miss, but he might. Or the other one I was looking at is potentially capturing over onto E2. But then just F2 is a threat with the drawbridge there. I'm kind of feeling like we're in a spot where I might need a sneaky threat to get out of this with a win. So let's go for that. Again, like I said, I highly doubt that Abyss will miss this. And he's got easy, okay, that response makes sense. So now but that does give me some, the fact he's made this capture does give me some breathing space in terms of this horizontal threat. I'm actually definitely going to place a wall to look to get this stack. I could place it here and prevent the threat immediately being renewed, but I'm actually going to place it here because it prevents him from getting a positive flat move, so running away up that way and protecting it with his wall. And obviously if he renews the threat, I can just come down straight down onto the stack here. Getting a wall onto this stack is going to be, again, attack threat. Again, we might well see the wall smash now. again, it's not quite Tinue. I've got a couple of options to defend. And if I can get out of it, if he does choose to go that route, if I can get out of it without losing, then that's a win for me because he's basically given me back one in the flag count. Okay. Interesting. Goes for... Okay, that's the... I suppose the downside of placing my wall here on A3. Is that he can run away this way. But I prefer him running away this way, to be honest, to running away up that way and getting the positive flat count move. So another wall on C1 is my instinct. Sorry. And that's then a lot of walls in this game. But I feel like, again, that is potentially some unnecessary. Oh, this smash is very close to Tinue. Because it's now making a threat horizontally and vertically. Luckily for me, for a certain value of lucky, I really should have placed that wall on A2, I think. Yeah, for a certain value of lucky, there are at least two spots which are so I can cut off on either E2 or E3. Those are both part of both roads. But yeah, it's not looking good for me. Like, this is taking his time, which he often does. Likes to consider things you'll quite often find best playing on the increment towards the end of games. Unfortunately, he's very good at playing on the increment, as well as being very good when he plays, more slowly. But I think, he's probably sort of working through the, what are the different combinations or kind of routes should that crush happen. Now, how does it play out from there? Wow. Okay, I did not expect that. Really didn't expect that. Now, I mean, it's tempting to immediately jump on this stack with my capstone. Am I just giving up the game somehow if I do that? The wall can jump over. Makes a threat. But this wall, the advantage of having this wall here is now, it's pretty expensive for me having all these walls down. But the move on to D1 does cut off the connection sort of north-south. So I think I can do that. And like I was saying earlier, I think it's going to be really important for me if I do want to get back into this game to get my capstone more active. So unless there's a tinue here that I'm not seeing. Okay, no, just places onto d4. Now, I may just have to bring my capstone back. This is obviously a threat. I could instead do this capture here. Now, that's not a attack threat, but it does give me more of a potential line going down here. Or the other option is I could capture up here, which gives me the advantage of taking the... It creates another liability for me, but there aren't any of my pieces that close to, and it takes them away from that positive FCD move. I kind of like that, actually. Just disrupts all these connections around here. I probably will have to bring this wall over onto D1 as well. Yeah, let's go for that now. So if this allows me to play on C1, that makes attack threat. I wouldn't be surprised if he just plays there himself. Again, like, I still can't... Well, no, that's not true. I could now go for something like the smash over onto F4, but with the white capstone here, that's not going to be good for me, at least just yet. Now he does play C1 to prevent the attack threat. I'm going to play C2 just so he can't renew his attack threat without at least capturing. I suppose you could play on D4 to make that threat. And then I'd probably have to bring my capstone down or something along those lines. Yeah, no, that one makes sense as well. Now, I can capture C1. I don't want to bring the capstone the whole way down because leaving a black flat on top of this stack allows the wall to grab it, and then it's sort of positive FCD moves for days. Yeah, I kind of like making the threat. Probably see this wall come up here or something. Might even see a wall down on B1 if Abyss is feeling really confident in the flat count. 5, 7, 9 to me. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11 to Abyss. I've got the only immediate positive flat count moves as it stands. Okay, but that is no longer the case. That's an interesting capture, but it makes sense from Abyss's point of view. What can I do about that? Because it's obviously threatening a +3 move down this way, which would also be attack threat. I've got 53 seconds left on my clock, so I'm going to have to start talking less and playing more. Okay, I'm going to just place there for now. Worth noting also, Abyss is in control when the game ends because he's got fewer reserves left. Yikes. This is not good. I think if there's anywhere I can go that can start getting some advantage, and like except for the crush with the capstone. If I go for the crush, I have to think about that some more, but for now, that should do on an A2. A1, okay. Maybe I can work something along the top here, but I'm really not confident. Especially with the amount of time I've got left. Like if I had more time, I might be able to figure out something. But okay, let's go for this. This gives me a nice spread that way. Thinking about actually I should probably bring the C2 over onto D2 as well. Just reduce the power of that spread down if this gives me the chance. Six, 7, 10, 12 plays 5, 6, 10, 12. Okay. I mean, I'm not out of it completely here, but again, because Abyss is the one who's controlling when the game ends for the moment, he's going to be able to choose the moment when it's most advantageous to him. I'm going to have to, okay, he goes for the capture over there, reduces that flat count move. I'm going to try and do the same thing. Take this capture. This is getting real tricky, and we are both very short on time. So it may just be who makes the big mistake first. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plays 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 to 12. Okay, so I need to start making my positive moves with Abyss having so few pieces left. But he can now do this jump over here. I think I'm basically, it's basically over. Yeah, he just needs to make that capture there. Okay, doesn't, but don't have the exact count here, but I think I need to make a big capture there, and then this capstone coming up or the wall coming over is going to finish it off. Okay. To all there, does that do it? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 2, 1, 2, 6, 12, 13 would be a draw. So again, this positive move there, yeah, that does it. Okay, so I can capture here, but that last flat stone coming down is game over. I'm fairly sure. That was tight. Well played to Abyss. I never felt like I was even close to being in the game. But yeah, good game, and hopefully I can be back and do the same to him as white in game 2. Okay, welcome back folks for game 2 of this USTA Tak Open match against Abyss. Having lost game 1 as black, I'm now white, so just make sure that Abyss is ready to go. But yep, so I've got a game to make up here. I'm gonna have to be at my best to overcome Abyss, but I do have the advantage of going first this time. So let's get underway. Interesting. Okay, so Abyss goes for an opposite corner opening this time. I'm still going to stick to my current preferred opening move, which is the knight move. I'm going to allow, if Abyss wants to go for the edge crawl, I'll let him do that this time. And I think potentially, okay, so he doesn't go too much further with that just yet. Here, place F2. Yeah, this is somewhat edge crawly, but given the situation we're in at the moment, I don't particularly want to place D3, for example, or D2, because that leaves a sort of enticing spot for the black capstone to come down. I don't mind Abyss placing his capstone on F3 here. I wouldn't expect him to, but yeah, that would be an option, I suppose, but it does mean that the capstone is there and somewhat isolated on the edge. So I think options for Abyss here are placing F3, for example, or okay. I'm going to have to keep an eye out for making sure I can cut off what's going on over on this side, but for now I think I can afford to keep pushing, using the momentum that I've got, and just be aggressive for the moment. Interesting that we're now on turn 5 and none of the 4 centre spaces have been claimed, which is unusual. I wouldn't expect it to last that much longer. But yeah, obviously Abyss, I don't know if he's been playing this kind of more aggressive edge-based strategy recently, or if this is something that he's trying now as something a little bit new. I know that it's the Tiltak bot, which is the the strongest of the bots. Someone's currently playing against it. Does favour the edge crawl, so I'm not surprised to see players trying it out. So this capstone coming down obviously disrupts the threat I'm trying to make here. It is off on the edge, so I don't mind that. I think I'm going to start, and we'll claim one of those center spaces. I may end up needing to place my capstone over here somewhere. Abyss might well play, for example, B4 next. But again, I still have the momentum, at least until this capstone comes down onto F3. And as we saw in that previous game, in game 1, Abyss was able to sort of, by really using his momentum, keep me on the back foot and sort of parlay that momentum that white has into a kind of an unassailable position. Okay. So interesting, the capstone comes across into the center, further into center to cut this off rather than going down. That makes sense, as it does mean that this capstone is going to be more active going forward. That is a potentially slightly less robust way of cutting off this threat. It's going to now be able to move on to either D4 or E3 to sort of continue to disrupt what I'm trying to do. And then I'm placing my cap. It's in a good position to capture either over onto B3 to sort of try and cut off what Abyss is doing here, or more to the point, it's going to help me to potentially make a threat up this way, and it's a nice central position. So I think that follows most of the guidelines that Simon set out in his Tak University video on capstone placement. Definitely check that out if you haven't already. There's some very good guidelines for how best to place your capstone there. Interesting, this wall here is looking to obviously now sort of fully put paid to this threat here, but I can potentially start building just directly up and down this way. Question is, what do I play first? So I can play D6 and make the threat immediately. The wall's going to come down. I think for now I actually prefer claiming a bit more of this center spot. Try and now build down sort of D and C. And then this also moves a little bit further towards making a horizontal threat as well. So Abyss kind of has to decide how he's going to defend. What I've got going on and what the best way is for him to sort of gain some momentum. Like I said, I'm going to have to keep an eye out on this A and B file. Not let him get too much of a head start over here. But for now, I'm content to not necessarily make it threat every turn, but I'm going to be able to, for the foreseeable future, continue to put pressure on. And you can see that although these 4 pieces of mine are fairly well sort of handled by the capstone in this wall, my pieces are generally sort of more well placed together. Okay, interesting. So Abyss does decide to try and start building towards that horizontal, that vertical threat. So again, I can play d6, force that capture onto f3, or the capstone coming across. I think instead for now I'm going to make a slightly conservative move, placing a3, but it does, again, it gives me, the important thing about that is it gives me that anchor onto this left hand side of the board. So means that I'm going to have the capability potentially of making some threats in that direction myself, as well as getting in the way of Abyss somewhat. So the question now is, does he continue with something like b4? Obviously my capstone's in position where I can come across onto b3 and shut that down. Or does he do something a bit more defensive? I mean, b4 is the obvious spot, I think, here for Abyss. But he might be thinking of something else. Shall have to wait and see. Spaces I'm looking at that are going to be valuable or important are obviously b4 here. Yeah, it does go for that. b2 I think is also going to be kind of an important one. So I think I want to yeah, I'll play b2, just prevent the immediate threat there. And now obviously capturing onto b3 would be attack threat potentially. I'm also looking at now c2, I think is going to be important, and it's probably going to be my next spot to play, depending on what Abyss does. He can obviously play c2 himself. He could play a2, look to then make attack threat with either a1 or b1. Or I could see him maybe preemptively bringing the capstone over, perhaps. I think there's got quite a few options here. I feel in a better spot at this stage of this game than I did in the previous game, but I don't feel like I am miles ahead as white, which is always the hope. But yeah, we'll have to see how this develops. I think Abyss has played decent early games so far, and it's sort of all to play for at this point. I think the key thing that Abyss has done better this game than I feel like I did last time is really shutting down this kind of early threat that I started with. I just never really got a proper handle on that. Okay, plays d2. I take c2. As I said, I think that was the one I was most interested in earlier. This does give, this is a relatively strong little formation, particularly with the capstone nearby. And it's potentially building all the way up through here. Obviously my capstone is in the way there, which is important for me. Now I can make attack threat next turn with either a2 for the horizontal threat, or c1 or d6. The key for both of those is this d4 square. So again, Abyss might come over onto that square preemptively, or he might wait for me to make the threat. Might, for example, place a2 so that I can't make the horizontal threat, force me to make the vertical threat if I'm going to do that, and then bring capstone across. Okay, he does go for the preemptive capture there. So I could place a4, start building back up alongside here. I think I'm going to place a2 first, just make it more difficult for Abyss to pressure me with this vertical threat. And now I kind of want to, I'll probably take e4 next if Abyss leaves it for me, just to have a sort of multi-dimensional threat, or maybe c5. But again, given sort of looking just at the number of pieces there are on the board, I'm best off trying to fight in this lower half where I have 8, 9 to Abyss's 4. Particularly, for example, if I bring my capstone across onto d3, then that's blocking his capstone from coming down this way. Okay. That, I think, is... it cuts off a little bit my influence down here. He's probably also potentially building to look to try and make some kind of horizontal threat over this way. So I'm going to place c5. Just looking to kind of keep Abyss from being able to easily threaten capturing c4, and also obviously build my own north-south threat, or potentially force the capture with the capstone. Now there's some consideration, not immediately, but relatively soon, to potentially creating a hard capstone on c4. Okay, places e4, yeah, so it is definitely looking for that kind of the horizontal threat there. So do I go for that hard cap now? It leaves c3. The problem with creating hard caps, it leaves c3 available for Abyss to make threat. I think I'm just going to go c2, c1 rather, make the threat, I expect the capstone to come across here, And I think I could just place a flat stone on d4. Or I could do nothing just yet. Place, for example, on e1 or d1, make the threat. If I make the threat, I think I place on e1, just because then if my capstone, I think my capstone's likely to want to capture onto d3. And then the throw down is a threat. So I definitely don't want to just let Abyss get d4, but I can afford to at least play one move down here. Abyss will just fill in whichever one I don't place on. So once Abyss does place d1, I can capture over here, make the threat. It's probably worth doing. I'm thinking at some point I may even place a wall on d4. The problem with that was obviously it kind of messes up my own position a little bit. And because of the Komi, I want to avoid placing walls if I can, unless they're going to be helping me to release captives, for example. Interestingly, this game, playing as white, I've had a little bit more breathing room, and I'm significantly up on the clock relative to Abyss, which may end up being advantageous for me in the late game. Although, like I said, Abyss is excellent at playing with not much time left on the clock. Flat count currently is 9-11 to Abyss with the Komi, and I have 7-11 as well. So once Abyss, assuming Abyss places a flat stone, he'll be up by 1. Interesting that he's taken this long on this particular move, and to me it seems pretty obvious that he would play d1. Let me just make sure that my internet connection is functioning and I haven't disconnected without my knowledge. Seems to be okay. Okay, so that I suppose makes sense. Plays the wall rather than the flat. So now I can still make the threat with the capture over with my capstone. I think I want to do that. Yeah. Does mean that this cap can now come down and jump onto, for example, c2, which could potentially be problematic for me. But I think
being a bit more proactive in this way is worth it for me. Okay, so I'm just going to so I can just renew the threat placing on D1. Yeah, like I am thinking about, okay, if this capstone decides to come down, is that going to be a problem for me threatening to capture onto B2? But I think for the moment I'm okay with that. Like the capstone is not prevented from doing that because I would need to capture twice to make the road there. But I think I've got enough going on that I can deal with that if that is what Abyss chooses to do. Okay, interesting. Captures onto C2. I think with that, I'm going to place a wall. Yeah. Look to free this captive. I can also potentially crush this wall to make then another threat. That could be something I might want to do. The disadvantage of this is it allows Abyss to play D4. Yeah. Which might force me to bring my capstone up. I think, yeah, that's going to be necessary. So that wall smash is now no longer an option. But this is still feeling okay for me, I think. Between the capstone and the wall, I've now got this, the black cap fairly well hemmed in. Do always need to be aware of the possibility of the crush, but for the moment that's not something that I'm too worried about. So, okay. It's attack threat. Now go for the wall capture. The crush is an option. How do I feel about that? I don't love it. Capture across, places on C3. It's not attack threat. Does mean I'm giving up on this for now, I think. Because that will capture up with the flat, but yeah, I think I prefer the safer move with the wall. 6, 7, 8, 10 to black, 5, 10. Okay. Chuck down. Another wall. No, I think I need to be a bit more aggressive than that. Ideally, I want to get into a position where, I'm pinning this capstone, preventing a crush should I want to move this stack back onto C3, for example. I think expect Abyss to play D2 here. That's where I want to go next. Unless he has some other cunning plan in the works. Yeah, it's an interesting position altogether. I can make attack threat with D6 next turn, going down this way. Or obviously with D2 if Abyss does something. Okay, now he goes for the capture there. I was considering placing a wall on D2 last time, but now I am going to place one on C1. Can't place a flat obviously because I'll get captured. My other option would have been, for example, just capturing up onto B4. But I like getting... Okay, that's looking to kind of pin my capstone, prevent the crush here. I think... now I've been given the option. I will... make this threat. I still want to play D2 at some point, but I mean, Abyss can't currently play D2 because I'm making a threat over here. And also, if at some point he does, the capture up here is going to give me potentially a +3 move if Abyss has a piece on D2, so that is okay for me, should it happen. Okay, so here, I'm looking to get that connection onto this side to limit the crushing options with the black capstone. So for example, now I can bring this wall from B3 across onto C3, and that crush would give me a road with the spread to the left. Make sure keeping it on top of the flat count. Here, Abyss is right down into the increment. Okay, places the wall there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 12 to Abyss. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to me. Okay. That's obviously quite a defensive move for Abyss, so I think I'm going to keep placing flats for now. I guess the only reason to not do that would be if he captures there with the wall. That's then giving him a spread that way. If I capture here, the wall crush. Unfortunately, because of this wall, he can leave all the pieces here and then spread back out. So I might need to do this first. But, you know, if he does do this, that's a negative flat move for him. The plus actually doesn't help him out that much in the long term, at least as long as I'm controlling the end game. So I think I can allow that to happen if that's the way he wants to go. And just look up here and potentially to make a threat at some point with capturing up. Threatening A5. Playing A1 means that now I can move up here, not be afraid of the crush. Okay. Four, 8, 12, 4, 8, 12, 13, so 14 for Abyss with the Komi. So I am going to need to get a couple of positive FCD moves from somewhere. This is the only option currently for me, but I can also get them potentially by making some threats. And places I can make threats realistically. Yeah, I think I need to do this. Now, again, we might see this wall come across here. No, it just places. Okay. Interestingly, if I make that capture onto C2, that means that the crush is then on, I think. Yeah. Okay, how about we do this capture here? Capturing with a flat stone is generally not a good idea at this stage of the game, sort of with the flat count in mind. But my wall is protecting it and making attack threat, so it can't immediately drop a wall. And yeah, he's going to have to make a capture somewhere. Probably this wall coming up, I'd guess. Or this wall. This wall coming up doesn't help him. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I can make this capture. Any way he crushes, I get the win. Okay. Places a wall there. Place a flat here, make a drawbridge threat. Still can't crush. Drawbridge threat with this wall coming off onto A3 and creating the road all the way around here. Definitely tricky for this, playing with basically just 15 seconds per move. I'm luckily in the spot where I can take my time over these moves a little bit more. Oh, and he's just missed the threat. Well, that's unfortunate, but yeah, in that position, not hugely surprising given the amount of time that he had to assess that board. That was a tricky board state. I think I probably would have been able to squeak out the flat win anyway in that spot, but yeah, that was a a difficult one to navigate definitely, and Abyss was making it tough for me. So good games to Abyss. One game apiece feels like probably a fair reflection. Both winning as white, also not hugely surprising, even with the 2 Comey. Just the that extra momentum first play advantage gives you is pretty big. So good games to Abyss. Very well played. Those were fun, if stressful, to play. I hope they were also fun to watch, and I'll look forward to the next game in this round of the USTA Open against Ali. I think hopefully either I think Simon or Nohat Coda said that he might be able to record that one. If not, I will see if I can record it myself and make sure we've got someone commentating on it, because that should be a big match with some high level play in it as well. But until then, thanks for watching and happy tacking.